Hello, this is Hema Subramanian. Just wanted to greet the group back. We have a new link here to continue our broadcast. We apologize for the technical issues that we had with our webcasting platform previously, but we are reinitiating the meeting to continue here through this new link. Chairman Tom, do I have you on the line?
I am, Hema. I'm here.
Terrific. It looks like many of the committee members have already joined, and currently we are scheduled to be in a session where if EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler addresses the group. Let's check if we have a good connection to the administrator as well.
I'm ready to go. Just let me know whenever you all are ready. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We are ready for your remarks. Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay, can you see me all right?
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for the first public meeting of the Farm, Ranch, and Rural Communities Advisory Committee. This committee was formed to provide independent policy advice and make recommendations to EPA on environmental issues that are important to agriculture and rural communities. One of the priorities for the Trump administration has been to restore trust between agricultural stakeholders, rural communities, and the EPA. President Trump has been clear about the administration's commitment to agriculture and rural America. We believe that farmers and ranchers are some of our strongest allies in our mission to protect human health and the environment. The United States is the world's top food exporter, and it's estimated that by 2050, the world's population will surpass 9 billion people, which means food production must increase by about 70% to meet the population demand. This means American farmers and ranchers must find additional ways to increase yields to feed this growing population. Advancements in crop protection tools, biotechnology, fertilizer, water use, and preventing of waste will have to take place. There are two charged topics for this committee to deliberate on and provide recommendations, and I'd like to share both of those with you now. Both topics recognize the role innovation plays in environmental outcomes. The first charge is helping us to create a holistic pesticide program for the future. While EPA's pesticide program has done a very good job in approving pesticides on an individual basis, the public does not understand our holistic approach to pesticide management. The questions that we need your help in answering include: how can we better communicate with the American public and the world the agency's holistic approach to pesticide management? And two, how can we promote a more holistic approach to crop and environmental protection that accounts for both costs and benefits of innovation? Please keep in mind when evaluating this charge that the agency expects to have decreased reliance on animal testing, increased efforts to safeguard pollinators, and improved Endangered Species Act consultations in the coming years. Last week, I had the privilege of providing an address at the Nixon Library in California on the future of the EPA for the next 50 years and the second term of the Trump administration. I laid out 5 goals for the agency for the second term, and one of the goals was creating a holistic approach to pesticides. Far too often, the average American consumer's only experience with our pesticide program is watching television advertisements by trial lawyers denigrating pesticides on a one-off basis. What we need to do, and we need your help, is to help frame our pesticides program in a holistic approach to reassure the American public the scientific underpinnings and decisions that go into making our decisions on whether or not to license or renew a pesticide. It's our goal to provide as many tools in the toolbox for you as farmers and ranchers to use, where we need to make sure that those pesticides are environmentally safe, safe for consumers, and safe for pollinators and endangered species. So we need your help in helping to frame this issue going forward for the EPA. Our second charge is supporting environmental benchmarks with interagency partners. EPA is working with its federal partners to support interagency benchmarks around reducing nutrient losses and reducing food loss and waste. We must combine these initiatives with an integrated planning approach that can help meet the demands of the water sector and the American public in the 21st century, specifically to the nutrient loss issue. As I hope all of you are aware, last year we unveiled a nutrient trading program to work with the agriculture community. One of the other 5 goals that I laid out for the Trump second term was meeting the demands of the water in the 21st century. Part of that is nutrients, part of that is water reuse, and all of it is conserving more water for the American public. There are questions that we need your help in answering, and they include: first, how can EPA help enhance new technologies, practices, or market-based innovation to advance nutrient pollution, water reuse, and food loss and waste? Second, how can EPA support agriculture's and rural America's efforts to reuse water and ensure the security of our nation's water resources? And third, how can EPA support efforts to combat nutrient pollution in U.S. water bodies? We have made a lot of strides in this effort over the last number of years to reduce nutrient runoff in our programs, in particular dealing with the Chesapeake Bay, the Great Lakes, and the Everglades. We need to figure out what pilot programs we've adopted over the years, working with all of you, are that work the best, and then implement those across the board, across the country. You may have noted in the press over the last 24 hours, the states of Maryland and several others suing us on the Chesapeake Bay cleanup, attacking farmers in Pennsylvania and New York. It's my belief that this is a politically motivated lawsuit, timed for prior to the election, and has no basis in the facts. We have been working very cooperatively with farmers across the entire Chesapeake Bay area, including Pennsylvania and New York, and we prefer to work cooperatively with the farmers in all states. I'm sorry that that lawsuit happened. Again, it has no basis in law or the facts, but was politically motivated, and I believe it will be ultimately dismissed by the courts just as that. In the meantime, however, it does not decrease our willingness, need, and desire to work with all of you to help better frame how we're going to conserve water and address the water needs of this country in the 21st century. And the only way we can address the water needs of our country in the 21st century is to work cooperatively with our agriculture partners. The same on food waste and food loss. Food makes up the largest single item that goes to our waste sites across the country. We need to decrease that, not first because on the environmental side, the amount of waste going to our landfills needs to be decreased. But even more important is the food loss waste represents food that is not going to needy people in this country or beyond that go hungry or don't have the food that they need to meet their daily needs. We are misdirecting a lot of food resources across the country, and we need to minimize the waste and better prepare it for, I don't mean cooking, but better prepare the food for the places where it is needed. That is not just an environmental issue, but that is a human issue where we need to be more responsive to the needs, particularly of those less fortunate who have food needs. So with these two charges, The first on the pesticides program for the future, and the second to help us with both water nutrient and food waste. I believe that I am filling your plate as far as issues to work on in the near and short term. I'm looking forward to the results of this committee, advice, and steps that we can take together to address these very important issues. Again, I want to thank you for your agreement to serve on this committee. I take this committee very seriously. I am looking forward to your responses to these charges and to your answers to these questions. 2 of these questions are 2 of the 5. These 2 questions are 2 of the 5 that we have laid out for the second term, if that shows you the importance of how I take this committee and the charges that we've put before you. So again, I want to thank you for your commitment to serve on the Farm, Ranch, and Rural Communities Committee. I hope you have a great meeting, and I look forward to seeing the results of your efforts. Thank you very much, and have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Administrator Wheeler. Do you have time for a couple of questions?
I do. I was afraid I didn't because we got a little bit of a late start, but I still have a few minutes. So happy to take some questions.
Thank you. So to the committee, if you would like to ask Administrator Wheeler a question, please type your name into the meeting chat pod and we will call on you.
Hema, can I kick us off?
Yes, sir. Chairman Tom McDonald.
Administrator, I'm Tom McDonald. I'm chairing the FRRCC. Yesterday, Carrie Meadows presented the charge topics to us, and I congratulate you. I asked for substantive charge topics, and you certainly delivered. So thank you for giving us something meaningful to work on and report back to you on. One of the questions that was asked yesterday that I think you'd be most appropriate to address is, how will EPA use our recommendations? And will we get any feedback on if the recommendations are adopted by the agency, or how the agency actually uses or responds to our recommendations?
Certainly. First of all, I see this committee as a two-way street. We're providing the charge questions to you. We want you to provide the answers to these questions and the help and the assistance. You're not limited just to the specific questions that I asked. I will ask that you for the most part, try to keep to the broader areas of the 2 charge issues, but both of those, you could probably spend the next year addressing either one of those and not be able to address all the issues surrounding them. So it's certainly, and thank you for agreeing to chair this committee. It's certainly open-ended in where you and the committee members would like to go. You will see, hopefully you will see the results of your input into our programs across the board, but we will also be providing feedback to you on the recommendations you provide to us. So, this is not your only meeting, and the meeting when you get results to us won't be the only time we talk to you either. I'm looking forward, hopefully at some point, to having this committee meet in person here at headquarters. Maybe we can do that next year. I'm quite honestly, I'm getting tired of all these virtual meetings. I'm much more of a face-to-face person, and I would hope that we could have a meeting where we are all together in the same room in the not too distant future. We can make some of our experts available to the committee, go into further detail on any of these issues as you have committee meetings to address them. And I believe you'll be getting live feedback, and then we will of course respond to whatever recommendations you provide us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald. Next, we have a question from Beth Sauerhoff. Beth, you can unmute your line now.
Hi, Administrator Wheeler. My name is Beth Sauerhoff. I'm with the American Farmland Trust, and I wanted to thank you for supporting the recommissioning of this group. I worked with the Ag Advisor, John Scholl, to stay on this committee for the first time back in 2007. So it's great to come full circle, so to speak. I just wanted to follow up with a question related to part of the charge that we were given. I'm curious, what does public trust in EPA's science-based process look like to you, and how do you evaluate that indeed you've gotten there, you've arrived?
No, I think it's an ongoing goal. I don't think that there will be a, unfortunately, I don't think there will be a specific step where we can say, okay, we've completed everything we can do on this, and everything's working perfectly. I think it's an ongoing process. And I compare this to an effort that I've undertaken here at the Agency on Risk Communication. And when I first started as the acting administrator just over 2 years ago, I laid out in my very first speech to the EPA employees the need to take a look at how we communicate risk to the American public. And I laid that out as a 2 to 5 year program, but I said it's also like changing aircraft carrier midstream in the ocean. It's going to take time to change the way we do business here at the Agency on Risk Communication. And that's probably an easier task than changing how the American public views pesticides. But I think there's certainly a lot of room to grow in this area, and there's a lot of things that we can do better. But I don't know that there will ever be a finalization to this project. But hopefully we will see milestones, and we will see a change in perspective by people as they view pesticides and as they view the food supply in particular. And I certainly hope that we will see some concrete actions and some successes along the way. But I think it's more of a mindset change, and that can take considerable time. But I'm in it for the long haul.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know if there were specific milestones or changes in behavior that you would be looking for that indicate indeed the aircraft carrier is moving in the right direction.
Well, I think part of that will be some advice from you all, and as the team, again, this is our second term goal. So the staff is just beginning to work on this, and I will be pushing the staff to provide some goals, short-term, long-term goals here, and to the extent that you all can help us define those, I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions from the committee?
Hema, this is Tom. I might ask one more question of the administrator. Again, yesterday, the question came up, are there any of the topics that have a higher priority in terms of reporting to you than others? In other words, is there anything that you need to have our recommendation by date certain and others that are not as near term?
No, I think, to be honest, I sat down with the staff over a course of a couple of meetings to refine the charge questions to the committee. We started with at least 4 or 5 different charge questions. And I took the advice of Carrie and other seasoned professionals here at the agency, but also looking at the goals that we had laid out for the next 4 years and beyond. And I think both of these charge questions are equally important. We can have short-term successes under both, but both of them are going to be long-term challenges that we need some new solutions for. So I wouldn't put either one or any specific question under the 2 charges as more important than the rest. Again, these feed into 2 of the 5 goals that we have for the second term, and the other goals the other goals include working more on a community basis for community-based environmentalism approach, which gets to rural America as well. It's restructuring our Superfund program to be geared more towards successes instead of process. And then we have the water, and we have the pesticide, and we have a 5th goal. I'm looking frantically at my staff in the room. We have 5 very important goals for the second term. Permits. I'm working with the states permits. We've done a very good job, I believe, during this administration on shortening the amount of time it takes us to reach a decision on a permit. Again, it's not saying that we will approve all permits, but to reach decisions on permits. But quite frankly, 96% of all water permits are done by the states, and 48 of the 50 states have primacy on air permits. So one of the things we want to focus on, the fifth item that we want to focus on in the second term, is working with the states to speed up their decision-making process. Again, not to force them to say yes or no, but to try to get them to an answer in a more reasonable period of time. So that's our fifth goal, which all these I think are important for rural America and they're important for farmers, but in particular, we need your expertise on the water question as well as the pesticide question.
Thank you, Administrator Wheeler. I believe that is the end of the time that you have available. If that's correct, then I want to thank the committee as well, and say we really appreciate you addressing the group.
Thank you, and again, I want to thank you all for your service on this committee. I believe this is a very important committee to the agency. Any of you who've followed what I've been doing, I've been meeting with different farm groups all over the country. We did the first ever MOU with the Future Farmers, FFA. I'm sorry, that's what they prefer now, FFA. First ever memorandum of understanding to work with the FFA, the future, quote, I mean not quote, comma, farmers of this country. We want to work with the next generation of farmers. We want to work with all of you, but we want to make sure that we are working more cooperatively with you than has been the history of the agency. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman McDonald. At this time, we can move into the next session. So on the agenda, we have between now and 2:50 work plan refinement. So if you'd like, I can reopen a Word document to try and capture some notes on the screen. We can also just let it be a free-form discussion and circle back with notes afterwards, but I defer to you on how to lead the session.
Hema, I believe it would be fine if you want to capture notes. What we did when our live stream was interrupted, I went to what I had planned for this last session, and that was I asked the committee 3 broad questions. One was how does the virtual meeting process, how did that work? What went well, what needs to improve, realizing that a virtual component will probably be a part of meetings going forward. Is there anything we need to do to improve our virtual process? The second was just general reactions and comments about the charge, the process, and the structure that we're choosing to use to address the charge and provide feedback. And then the third question that I ask is, are there any policy areas or policy issues that they would want to provide feedback to the agency on that are not a part of the charge that we've been given? And we've had several already give feedback. Jeanette Lombardo, Barry Berg, and Beth have already provided some feedback, and if it's okay with you, I'd just like to open it up again to the whole committee and get more feedback.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So anyone that would like to give us your feedback on the 3 questions, please feel free. You can. We'll try the open mic approach again. That seems to work pretty well.
This is Emily. I'll make a comment.
Yes.
And I'm sorry about before. Can you hear me? Can you hear me this time?
I can hear you now. I couldn't hear you when we were doing the work group selection.
I know, it was so frustrating. Okay, but I'm here. I've been following along. I think just to also comment and express gratitude to HEMA and the whole EPA tech committee behind the scenes, and Tom, to you for leading in this virtual setting. I think I have also, this has been my work for several months now, so I'm pretty used to it. But I do think this will, I'm sure, be easier going forward. But one thing I've noticed, since I'm also now teaching classes remotely, is that everything takes a little bit longer actually in the remote setting. And yet we also make the days shorter because people get more drained. So I do think it's helpful having, if there's information or we know there's going to be certain questions to answer in sessions, have that before, because it may help with the fact that it takes longer for people to respond and we have shorter time together. And I know that I think now that we have our charge and we know what our work is going forward, some of that will be alleviated. But yeah, and I think the other thing I just wanted to express, I have a lot of expertise on the food waste topic, so I'm eager to be involved in that, but also would like, as others have noted, to find ways to be involved in other topics. In particular, I'm interested in the water topic as well. And I know it may be that we need to have, possibly a separate plan for that one if there are so many people interested, so that people can learn along with the group and be kept up to speed. I just wanted to note that if there's some way to, think about if there's a topic that more people are interested in it, maybe it's treated a little bit differently. Maybe we give, more treatment to it in the big group meetings or something like that.
Right.
But just to thank you again.
Thank you. Does it make sense to the group if, and again, I haven't tallied the numbers, but if we've got too many in the water working group, would it make sense to make a water quantity and a water quality working group to split those two apart and have a quality aspect and just an availability, or it'd include reuse and those kind of things?
Tom, this is
I heard you start, but you went away.
okay. Now can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
I was thinking on that water quantity, quality, that maybe we should have subgroups and split it up. You could do quantity and quality, but you could also have the different topics as different subgroups and split us into different areas and then bring us back together, say nutrient trading or nutrients, water reuse, finance, and different areas. So since there's so many that's where our expertise lies, maybe we should utilize us in a different capacity and split us out more.
Okay, good idea. Michael, is that you?
Well, this is Michael. I started to uncue my mic and somebody else came on, so I muted it back. But I can tell you that I'm leaning back and looking at my rain gauge for the year. I'm at 1.48 inches for the year. We're at my house, but I'm right on the Columbia and the Yakima rivers, and so we have lots of experience with water quantity and the need for ag and fish. So very much up on that, but I can argue a lot of times that the same projects that are quality or quantity also fit the quality aspect. So as chair, I would leave it up to you how you see fit of breaking it up, and as long as you know the committee members and where their expertise lie, we would rely on you to break up how you see fit, would be my opinion.
All right, thank you.
This is Sharon Purchase. I think it would be really helpful if a part of the water group could focus on the on-farm resources and what's needed in particular for those in production agriculture, whether that be crops, livestock. I know here in Kentucky, our group has really focused on that through Kentucky Farm Bureau, and that topic is so broad. Quality and quantity are both needed discussion areas, but I think adding in a part about production agriculture would really be helpful.
Thank you, Sharon.
Hey, Tom, this is Mike Arts. I guess a procedural question here. What happens if there's a change in administration in 2 months? Does that mean the charge could possibly change?
This is Hema. I can address that question if you'd like, Tom.
Yeah, that would be good.
So the committee is chartered for 2 years since last February, so there would be no change in the chartering of the committee. The committee is subject to appropriations and budget, though, which run on fiscal years, which for EPA begin on October 1st of each calendar year and run through the end of September of the following year. So when what I can say is that these charges have been set at this point to go forward for the committee. I can't comment on whether any adjustments would be made if there was a change in direction. But you do, as the committee has proceeded in the past, and Chairman McDonald can probably attest to this as well from his involvement in the committee in the past. Typically, the committee proceeds with its work on the charge that preceded any shifts in administration. But you know, that is subject to any directional changes that could happen.
Yeah, that has been my experience in the past. When we did have an administration change, we didn't. The committee continued. It did face funding issues, and I don't think it was particularly anyone singling out our FACA, but it was at that point in time when the government in total was being shut down and going through funding issues. And so we didn't have the funds to have our meetings and you know, do the work that we needed to do. So it really delayed and made our work more difficult, but nonetheless, we continued on the path that we were on and presented recommendations to the new administrator based on the charges that we'd been given. Okay, so I mean, I'm happy to continue this discussion. I'm hearing that the committee thinks it's appropriate to subdivide the water group if we need to get people in areas where they have more expertise and let folks focus on specific areas within that topic. Let's go back to the three larger questions. We're running, I think we've got about 7 minutes until this session ends, and so I'd like to get any more feedback from the committee on the larger questions, and if you have thoughts about the water topic and the work group, feel free to throw that in as well.
Yeah, Tom, this is Barry.
Yes, sir.
Yesterday, when we first started talking about this, and someone raised the question about water quantity and water quality and that topic in general, and said that it was so vast that how are we going to accomplish all of that. I do see why we may break that into two, quantity and quality, but I had commented on some of the things that are associated with that topic. Once you develop or create ideas or recommendations on one thing, they kind of follow like a domino effect, that the next one is addressed partly by what you come up with one idea, and it kind of domino effects throughout the rest of the different ideas in that charge. So I just want to point that out as something that it may look daunting at the get-go, but things may fall in place more easily as we go through it.
That's a good point, Barry. All of these are very broad topics that at first glance you say there's no way, but just like we did today, we start breaking it down and finding the areas where we want to focus and provide our feedback and work on those areas. So yeah, I do think probably subdividing will get more in depth into the topics, and that we'll just look at this when we get through and see how it all sorts out.
Hey Tom, this is Lauren Lurkins. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, I want to address, I don't have any extra topics, bonus topics to add, but I want to make a couple comments to address the first two questions. Number one, I think the virtual meeting is what it is. So great job and kudos to everybody, including the committee members, for going with the flow. And I would just say that it was really great on behalf of all of the leadership at EPA to have the series of presentations yesterday. So Hema, please let them know that that's information that, although we may not do anything with it, that was a great opportunity to hear, some additional information beyond what we read and what we work on every day. Then the second question, my general reaction to the charge is that particularly, in my job working alongside Illinois farmers through the Illinois Farm Bureau, those are the topics particularly on pesticide and waters and nutrient loading, nutrient loss. Those are the top issues that our organization works on, kind of to follow up on one of Sharon's points earlier. So it's really, I don't know if it's a good thing, but our to-do lists are lining up very nicely with what is happening in the real world in agriculture and what our individual farmers, at least here in the Midwest and Illinois, are very worried about. And in particular, they're very worried about where EPA is going to come down on those two main issues. So I think the work that that the agency is laying out before us and our opportunity as a committee is tremendous. So I just want to say I think they're completely on point.
Thank you. Lauren, thanks for all of your leadership leading up to the meeting as well, and I appreciate all your help.
You bet.
Chairman Tom, if I can just make one clarification, I happened to hear when we were having the technical difficulties in the previous session. Just a technical clarification for ad hoc work groups as you move forward in setting those up. Technically, they can be any size. Just wanted to let you know the restriction comes that once you have quorum in a activity of the committee, it's subject to the public notice requirements and the DFO requirement of presence. So you can set them up however you'd like in the committee. And but once you hit that quorum number, it's just that the additional requirements are triggered, but you have total flexibility in how you set them up.
Thank you.
I have a question on when we do these working groups, can we, would we ask, I don't know how we would get in people that we're working with now in our own areas to be involved in that? Is that possible? For instance, you know, if we have with this food waste, I serve on a task force for DMI, and I'm just curious whether we'd want to bring in some of those experts to be part of the discussion.
So Matthew, thank you for that question. The short answer is yes. If the work group and the work group chair feels like that area of expertise is needed and beneficial to the deliberations of the working group, then absolutely. Hema, I think I'm safe in saying we have no limitations on outside experts to help us with our deliberations. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So you can bring in
Hema, we can't hear you.
Thanks for letting me know. Okay, so I'll repeat. So yes, Tom, Chairman Tom is correct. You can bring in outside experts or outside parties into a work group that are not a part of the normal committee for ad hoc work groups. And we are happy to help identify some resources or contacts if you need. Though one requirement, I believe, is that the chairs of ad hoc work groups are committee members, but the other participants in those work groups can be outside of the committee.
Tom, Bill Kauser.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, Tom, I guess I want to make a comment to Michael, and this is really something when you look at waters and quantity and quality. I just looked at my gauge, and since Monday we've had 4.5 inches, and we're trying to fix seed corn. So we're on the total other spectrum of where you're at. And gosh, I wish I could share some of this, but I was I've been on the phone all day, and I got bleeped out of part of the meeting there over after when we came back. But Tom, I think you and your vice chair, if you need to move people around in these committees that you see their expertise could really benefit, I truly feel that you too have the latitude to ask those people to serve on a committee, especially with their expertise.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that. Hema, we are at the 52 after the hour mark. Do you need your full 10 minutes for wrap up?
I believe we can complete our wrap up relatively quickly, and I know Carrie Vicenta Meadows has also joined us to do closing remarks. If you would like to take another couple of minutes to just wrap up the discussion here, please go ahead.
All right. Is there anyone else? We probably have time for one more committee member.
So this is Graciela. I just have a comment. I've been listening to all the people from EPA that have come and talked to us about the charge, and all of them mentioned that we should develop these recommendations with like underlying goal of help EPA get into trust with the farmers and communities, and also to advise on how to communicate. And I don't want that we forget that because when I read through the charge has many assumptions, or even, I wouldn't call them assumptions, but some statements that qualify what people are thinking, like, for example, already saying that that people don't understand the holistic approach and other things that I think we should examine not from the top on, but from the bottom up, because it might be that already some of those need some adjustment in that goal of including in whatever we propose recommendations of making that connection and rebuilding that trust that they're asking us to do. It's just a comment, general comment on my reading of the chart.
I'm sorry, someone was trying to speak.
Oh.
Okay.
Well,
I was able to hear Graciela's comment. Tom, were you able to hear?
Yes, I was able to hear her. I thought someone else was trying to speak after she finished. Okay.
Okay, so Graciela, did I capture? I started to capture your comment about how the charge includes assumptions, but was there towards the end? I just want to make sure. Did I capture what you'd like the committee to do? You'd like the committee to include consideration of this in their comments? Is that what you were getting at?
Yeah, because if we're going to build, any recommendation that include how to communicate or restore trust, like using the same language of the charge, we would have to have some information on those assumptions, because it might be that it's true for a component of the population, but not all, because it depends on from where these assumptions come from. Like if they come from the top, the top down, well, who is speaking from the side of the communities or the rural areas that we are trying to include in this holistic approach? So just that we need to consider maybe discussing more the underpinnings of the charge to separate to whom apply this data that we have in the charge and to whom it doesn't.
Okay, understood. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, Chairman McDonald, are we okay to move to the wrap up and closing remarks?
Yes, ma'am, I think so.
Okay, so I think we have our agricultural advisor to the administrator on the line here, so I'm not going to take much time. I'll just quickly say thank you to the committee for your participation and for your time and for your patience as we navigated the virtual environment, and I'm glad we were able to make this work. We will be consolidating notes, as I mentioned yesterday, here on the EPA end, and also working with your chair and vice chair. Technically, they have up to 90 days to certify the minutes or the notes. So for the general public as well, you can expect to see a summary posted to the website once the committee finalizes and certifies the summary. So it may take some time. We have quite a bit of information here to sift through and consolidate and organize. But we'll be working closely with your chair and vice chair to do that, and they may turn to you as well as a committee to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So also final materials will be posted to the website as soon as they're all available. We've already posted the the final version of the charge to the website. So for the committee, I mentioned this in the chat as well. We included some hyperlinks that were requested yesterday for some of the EPA programs in the final version that's already live on the website. So you'll receive that as well. So with that, I'm not going to take any more of Carrie's time. Carrie, do we have you connected? I don't think we can hear you. We can see you though.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Carrie.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all again, and I thought Graciela's comments were probably an incredibly important way to wrap up from yesterday to today to conclude our first meeting. I think there's lots of themes that have come up to the top over the last 2 days and really highlights the administrator's priority as well, and community-based solutions being part of it, and making sure that how we're communicating. And I think even the conversation that you all had about water quality versus water quantity and how that varies depending on where you are in the country, it is also part of that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more conversations, to the recommendations you developed. I was very excited behind the scenes today hearing the conversation, and again, echoing what the administrator said, the work of this committee is so important to help our work as an agency as a whole. So I am really honored to be able to get to work so closely with you all, and I look forward to our next meeting and hearing the work of the subgroups as well. So thank you all again for agreeing to serve. Thank you to the public for being a part of this first meeting, and I look forward to the rest of the work. So, and thank you to Tom and Lauren as well. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you. Thank you, and Hema, for all the time that you put into pulling this meeting off. I know this was a monumental task, and y'all did great work. Also, thank you to the EPA Office of Multimedia. You made the meeting run very smoothly, and we appreciate that. To all the committee members, thank you for taking the time and engaging so richly in our discussion. I'm really excited to work with you and put together recommendations that really reflect agriculture in our rural communities and continue building on the relationship with EPA. So thank you very much.
With that, Tom, you may move to adjourn the meeting if you wish.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the second day of the Farm, Ranch, and Rural Communities Advisory Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Y'all go eat lunch.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.